I'm Christy Bishop, and you're listening to the What Nobody Tells Us podcast. Each week, I'll be exploring a topic that's often stigmatized, misunderstood, or simply left unaddressed. And we're going to be shedding light on the things that nobody tells us, but that everyone should know. Let's get started. This month marks a very big occasion, anniversary, if you will. It's been 1 year since I started the What Nobody Tells Us podcast, which is insane. And I'm going to do a proper episode on all of the learnings that I've had over the past 52 weeks of 52, or I guess 51, technically 51 different guests, 51 different topics. There's been tears, there's been laughter, there's been joy, there's been sadness, there's been rawness and realness and vulnerability. And I can't even tell you that this is just what nobody tells us in general, for me, is this incredible labor of love. And it's a perfect example of when people say, hey, if you just get started, you never know where you're going to be in 6 months. And in my case, I just started this a year ago, and it's like I was struck by lightning when I came across the phrase that this delightful woman said to me in a sauna while talking about perimenopause and all these hacks. And I've shared the story before, but it's like, why does nobody tell us this? And it was like I was struck by lightning and literally ran home and I grabbed the URL and I grabbed the social handles and I said to Brian, and he's like, what is going on? You're a crazy person right now. And I said to him, I don't know. I don't know why, but I have to do this. I have to do this. And this is the name. I've been waiting for the name. I knew it was going to come through. I knew I was going to do something like this ever since having the commercial grade podcast a few years ago, but I didn't know what it was. I was just waiting for that lightning strike to hit, and it hit. So What Nobody Tells Us was born that day. And I knew it would start in the form of a podcast, but what I didn't know was how it would grow. So for me, I just started. I was terrified. And I think I've shared this briefly in the past to even, oh my God, you guys, the amount of time it took me to record that first, I think it's 14 minutes, that first intro, it was hours. I'm just sitting there doing it again and again. I was so nervous, analyzing every single thing that I said, this doesn't make sense. And what if people don't get this? And oh my God, my voice sounds terrible. And I don't know, what if it's going to be bad? It's like, oh my gosh. Get the fucking limiting beliefs out of your head. Get that soundtrack and that horrible negative talk track. Get out of here. Get out of my brain. And I just started. I just found guests and started lining them up. And my amazing friend, Lindsay, she ended up introducing me to her brother, who is a trainer for Body, formerly Beachbody. And he was my first guest. And he's had this incredible, incredible journey of losing over 100 pounds. But he was my first guest. And I took it baby steps. And as nervous as I was to interview some of these amazing people, I just kept it together and I just breathed my way through it. And I reminded myself, nobody has the perspective that I have. Nobody has the journey that I have. And no one's more equipped to have an open, vulnerable conversation, to share the things that nobody talks about, and to ask the questions that people need to know, especially if you're going to start going through some of these really difficult situations or confusing situations, or something that you're going through that you're not necessarily comfortable talking about to other people. Or like I've mentioned in the past, someone going through some of these things and you don't know how to help them. Well, these episodes have fully equipped people to help someone going through Alzheimer's or IVF, or God, even all the way over to coming out of life in prison. What? It's just bananas to me, where this has all gone. So we're going to start season 2 shortly. And it's going to look a little bit different because, as I said, I had no idea how this was going to grow. I didn't have a clue what was going to come. I just, when people say, just take the first step. Well, I took that first step and I am now sprinting. I am sprinting a year later. And this beautiful podcast, this little wonderful baby that I have birthed, has now turned into this awesome newsletter with a gazillion subscribers that just keeps growing. And I cannot even thank you guys enough, not just for listening to the podcast, but for subscribing to the newsletter and giving me feedback and ideas and all sorts of just awesomeness in terms of like, this is helping you. And I love it. And I can tell it is because I've got like a 90% open rate, which is wild. Like, I'm going to get nerdy for half a second. Like most newsletters or emails, I don't know, get like between 1 and 10%, like in an amazing, amazing, amazing day, depending on what you're sending out. 90% open rate. Like that's wild. So I know that it's helping, but got this lovely little newsletter. And then it's turned into using my experience in caregiving, particularly around caregiving and everything I've been through with Brian the last 15 years. That turned into coaching opportunities. And then it turned into companies asking, hey, do you do HR programming? Can we really need to help our employees get through this? Then it turned into do you do managerial training? Because we have managers that don't know what the fuck they're doing. I mean, my words, not theirs. Don't know what the fuck they're doing with the direct reports who are going out on mat leave or need to take a mental health break or are caring for someone who's sick or someone's parent is getting very, very, has become old and ill and they need to take that time and don't know what to do and certainly don't know how to balance it. And then all the way over to the educational front, I'm talking to universities and higher education institutions about creating courses on caregiving and how to help people navigate how much caregiving impacts your life. So I'm a busy little what nobody tells us bee over here. That's me. I'm this busy little bee. And again, I had no idea 1 year later where I would be with this, but it's a full-fledged business now and it is unbelievable. So the biggest thank you to you guys because this is a labor of love on my part. And if I could just be talking to the abyss, I mean, shit, I could talk to a wall and we think we all know that. But like, this is because of you guys. This is because of the support that you have all shared with me and the feedback and feeling like my story and Brian's story is relevant and it's inspirational to you and that you're learning things. And as we all go through hard stuff, we all need that guide. And I didn't have one in 2009. And I've learned so many. Oh my God, I get emotional thinking about it. Like the fact that I have the privilege now of sharing with you all of these things that I have learned, I it's wild to me. It really is. And it's the biggest privilege ever. And I have always dreamed of having my own business and having the freedom to do what I want to do when I want to do it and be able to truly help people. And now that I really get to do that, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting so choked up. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy. And I'm like beside myself with excitement and happiness about what we're doing now. And it's just the beginning. That's the crazy thing. Like this is just the beginning. And let's see 6 months from now and another year from now, what we've been able to do together. So just the biggest thank you ever. Now, I mentioned that the podcast is going to look a little bit different because I'm a busy little bee and I'm absolutely still going to have guests occasionally. But what I'm going to start to do is start to share really specific, granular insights and advice and lists and things that you can really use to take to heart as it relates to caregiving and other. It's not all caregiving for like a sick spouse, but it could be parenting. It could be caring for an elderly person. It could be different tools that you need. It could be different things like the Caregiver's Toolkit or essential things to start with. Or like today, what I want to talk about is this is something I just put out in my newsletter. And if you want to get it, you can subscribe at christybishop.com. But these are the top 10 cancer diagnosis truths and the things that I wish I knew from day one when I had no idea, A, what a caregiver even was, and B, had even less idea that I was about to be thrust completely into this world, like overnight, not even overnight. That's like a grandiose statement from like 4:10 in the afternoon to 4:12 in the afternoon. Like my life completely changed as did Brian. So, hindsight is 2020. And I just really thought for anyone who's about to go through or is concerned about having a pretty significant diagnosis or is having something confusing going on health wise, or there's someone, you're a caregiver and you're like, oh my God, I'm entering this new world. I don't know what the fuck to do. I thought it would be helpful to put together this list. So some of these episodes now they're going to be me sharing the list and sharing the perspective that I've gleaned over the years. So let's get into this list. And I'm going to try to not make it forever because, again, there's 10 things. And if you want to read more about them, again, feel free to visit christybishop.com. And that's where you'll see this specific newsletter linked underneath the newsletter section. But I just want to give some more color to these. So the first thing is this literally, like, if you do nothing else at the very beginning, like take a goddamn deep breath, then get yourself a notebook. Like, get yourself a notebook, open up your notes app. What I did, honestly, I got a trapper keeper, because you're going to you need one specific place to keep everything and write everything down. Now, things are different since 2009. Obviously, it's been 15 years and digital wasn't as big of a thing then. Apps weren't as big of a thing then, but I literally we still have it to this day. It's this bright orange trapper keeper. And we got those, like, those plastic sheets that you can put in it that are like business card holders, like the things you can get at like Staples or, Kinko's, RIP, FedEx now, FedEx Kinko's. And we put the the amount of doctors involved in this is insane. We put the neuro-oncologist business card in there, the neurosurgeon business card in there, the radiologist, the physical therapist, the speech therapist, the occupational therapist, the admins, the social workers. I mean, you name it. Everyone's like, here's my business card. The nutritionist, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card. And that still is a thing. So we put every single thing in there. And if they didn't, we wrote notes on the back of the business cards, like, some of the, like where this person was or who they were referred to, whatever, or how we came to know about them. But then I just had so many pages of just like, lined notebook paper in there. And something happens when you go to these appointments where, trauma kicks in and shock kicks in. And as much as you may feel like you're prepared to go into these appointments, it's like you walk out. It's like Brian when he has his podcast. Like he'll do like a 2-hour podcast and he'll come out and be like, how's your show? He'll be like, I don't know. I think it was fine. I'm like, what'd you talk about? He's like, I don't have a clue. I'm like, you talked for 2 hours and you don't have a clue. He's like, I have zero recollection. Sometimes these appointments can be very much like that because you're in the haze of shock, you're in the haze of grief, and you want to write every single thing down, especially because you're about to be hit with like a shockwave, a tsunami of information, both not just from the doctors, but also from your own research, also from like the specialists and the experts that you're going to end up talking to. There's going to be things that you don't understand. There's going to be words you don't understand. There's going to be phrases you don't get. There's going to be references to whole new worlds that are opening up before you. And it is so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. So get a notebook or get a very specific notes app, write down everything, date it, timestamp it, and then leave a space at the bottom for like, you're going to have questions that come up. Leave a dedicated space for questions. And so you can get back to it and be like, okay, from this day, from this appointment, we talked to X about all of these specific things. And do not be afraid to be like, hey doc, slow down, say that again, spell that. Tell me it in layman's terms, which I'll also get into. But you can write down the questions that you have after that. So that's number one. Number two, this is where I feel like a lot of people need to stop being so afraid and like stop being like so deferential and referential to doctors. And obviously Brian's medical team, they're literally part of our family at this point in time. They are the best people on earth and they've saved his life in every possible way. But if you do not have that and you do not understand what's going on, you need to advocate for yourself. Find your cojones, find those balls. If you're uncomfortable, you're not an outspoken person, I don't care. You got to find your voice. As I tell people that I work with, find your voice. I also tell Tessa that. Find your voice, honey, because advocating for yourself and your loved one, it literally is life or death. It is. Like, you need to advocate for yourself as though, and or your loved one, as though your life depends on it, because it does. If something does not feel right to you, speak up. If you don't understand something, ask the question again and again and again until you do. And if you find that a doctor isn't treating you with the respect and the compassion that you deserve, find a new one. Second opinions, baby. Third opinions, baby. And I know time is really difficult right now with getting the new appointments and getting, new patient appointments. And it's like a lot of these things sometimes can't wait 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it's all about who you know. It's all about the references. I mean, talk to people, reach out to people, ask their experiences. As much as you're going to be overwhelmed with shock and fear. And it's so easy to be insular and like want to crawl into a hole and never come out again. You actually have to force yourself to do the opposite. You have to force yourself to reach out. You have to force yourself to create a network and like do the things that you don't want to do because you don't want to be in this world. And trust me, I get it. Trust me, I understand. You don't want to be in this world. You don't want to start this journey. You don't want anything to do with this. You just want to close your eyes and go backwards. You want everything to be the way it was before you or your loved one got a diagnosis. Honey, I get it. I get it more than anyone gets it. But the reality is you are where you are, and no one can advocate better than you because you love your family, you love yourself, and you love your life. And you need to find a way to push for that. Um, again, get yourself out of your own comfort zone, push through the fear and the shock, or ask someone to help you because you have to fight for the care that you need. Number 3, to that end, build your support team and be very, very specific about what you need. This is a big one. And I talked about this in Brian's and my keynote at the American Brain Tumor Association last August. I had a whole section on friendship and how caregiving and cancer impacts friendship, but you're going to need help. And like, there's no doubt about this. And like, there is no shame in asking for help game. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're an idiot if you don't ask for help. And I hate to say it like that, but I was an idiot in the beginning. I was like, I can do all this. I can do all this. Oh my God. I was 29 years old and I turned 30 3 weeks before we got married, like 1 week into his new radiation and chemo situation. I look back on this. I'm like, girl, what did the universe throw at you when you were 29 and 30? What in the hell? Like, what just happened to me? But I didn't ask for help. And I, in fact, was like, I got this. And I only had my parents really involved and like 1 or 2 really close friends involved because of the shock and the fear of all of it. And also people come at you with 1,000 different opinions and 1,000 different things that you need to do and do it like this. But the fact is no one had been through anything that we were going through at all. And those outside opinions and very strong opinions and feelings were not helpful. So don't do what I did. Ask for help right away, but be very specific about what you need. So people want to help, but they don't know what to do. They don't have a clue. And so a lot of times people will actually distance themselves from you because it's like uncomfortable. They don't know how to talk about this stuff. They don't want to talk about this stuff. And sometimes, worse yet, they feel like this might be contagious. Like what you have, it's like, oh shit, if they're going through something horrible. Well, if we're too close to them, does that mean we're going to go through something horrible too? And like they can't handle it. But the people who can want to help desperately, but they simply sometimes just don't know how. And unless you've been through something like this, you don't know how either. So make a list. Here's what I suggest. You make a list of the people that you trust the most. Get in touch with them. And I'm guarantee you they've already reached out to you once they find out about this. Be very specific about what you need from them. Maybe you need a meal train. Maybe you need gift cards, because I found that a lot of people drop off food, but like, this sounds really dumb and like ungrateful. And I don't mean this way at all, but like when I was really just in the throes of grief, and Brian was too, like Brian needed to eat like a shit ton of calories. So, we had like lasagnas and smoothies and peanut butter and guacamole and all of these things, because he had to like continuously try to keep weight on his frame. Well, while I was going through all this, I didn't want to gain 30 pounds. Like I was having enough cortisol in my system. The last thing I wanted to do was eat enchiladas and casseroles and lasagnas and all these amazing things that our friends made for us. Incredible. But like that made me feel gross. So gift cards to restaurants, or now DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever they might be very specific about this type of specific things that you need that also work with your lifestyle. If you need someone to help drive to appointments, or I had my parents take Brian, or even my brother take Brian to appointments early on if I couldn't go for some work reason, like find your backup team. Or if you need somebody, like who's that safe space for you to just freak the fuck out on, like, because I'm telling you, this is one of the loneliest situations you can ever go through, because no matter how many people you're surrounded by, at the end of the day, you're in it on your own and with your partner, or with your loved one, whoever might be going through this. So find yourself that shoulder to cry on, and like get yourself a good therapist. There is again, no shame in that game, quite the opposite. So find those people, tell them specifically what you need from them. And if you don't know what you need, just let them help. Let them help. And if it's not the right way to help, then let them know. Let them know. And if they're really, truly amazing, loving, good friends, they're not going to get offended. They're going to be like, thank you for letting me know that. Okay, I'm going to do it differently this way. Because there's no time to get offended in any of these things. This is all about what works for you and what works for your family. And the people who love you the most want to know the details and how they can be there to support you. Okay, so I mentioned find yourself the friend who you can freak the fuck out on. But there's gonna be a lot of times, just a lot of times where you are not able to do that with a friend because you're gonna be feeling your feelings 24/7, and they are going to range from hysteria and fear and panic to depression and sadness and denial and all of these things, despair, but you're gonna feel it all. But you're gonna feel hope, you're gonna feel love, you're gonna feel gratitude for the things that oh my God, the life that we were just leading and we had no idea how good it was, and I love you so much and I can't believe these great times. There's just so many things. You honestly, you feel like a crazy person sometimes because so many emotions are going through you at any given point in time. It's like Inside Out on crack. But my advice for you is feel them, feel them, feel your feelings, and feel all of them. And I had this really beautiful piece of advice that someone gave me a long time ago, and it was the only way out is through. And that is so true. And to get through, you have to sit with your feelings, and it's so uncomfortable. But you gotta just sit there. You gotta feel them. You can't push them down. You can't numb them out. Don't get addicted to painkillers. Don't get addicted to alcohol. Don't get addicted to sex. Don't get addicted to technology. Don't look for ways to push this out and numb it or cover it up. Feel your emotions, express them, even if they're screaming at the top of your lungs in a backyard, screaming, help me 100,000 times in a row, which is what I did during one of my many, let's get real, many breakdowns. But know that all of the feelings that you are feeling are valid, every single one of them. So if you need to scream into your pillow, if you have done that, check that box. If you need to cry in the shower, check that box. Punch a punching bag, check that box. Scream in your backyard, check that box again. Do whatever you need to do. Just make sure the feelings move through you and give yourself grace. Okay. Number 5, this is very specific to cancer, but I think this is relevant to other very serious illnesses as well, or just uncomfortable conversations. I've titled this Prepare Yourself for the Cancer Face. It's this like, it just makes me want to punch people in the face, to be honest with you, but they just don't, it's like a pity face. It's like this sympathetic head tilt and there's those sad eyes and, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, that is terrible. Or honestly, it's better if they don't know what to say, so they say nothing. But there are people who just look at you as though this is never going to happen to them, or nothing bad is ever going to happen to them. They're like, it's kind of like oh, bless your heart, like one of those things. You know what? There's nothing you can do about it. Prepare yourself for it. Know that people are just going to express themselves in really different, crazy ways, and they're going to look at you differently, and it's going to be real weird. And some of these people might be some of the closest friends that you have, and all of a sudden everything has changed because of your new situation. But if you remember one thing, remember that their reactions are more about them than they are about you. Do not take it personally. They are reacting how they know to react, which honestly, a lot of times they don't know how to react. So it can be poorly. You don't have to judge them for it. You don't have to forget it. But just give them grace too, and know that they don't know, is really the bottom line. Okay, next, number 6. This is a really huge one. And I alluded to this before, but set boundaries. Set boundaries, communicate your needs clearly. And most importantly, this really helped me a lot in the early days. Designate a point person for information, like sharing information about what's going on, because you're going to have so many people reaching out, offering advice, like I said, unsolicited, but meant to be incredibly helpful, asking for updates. And I remember in the beginning, like, having to tell the story of Brian's diagnosis again and again and again and again and again was like its own form of trauma and contributed to my own multiple forms, I'm sure, of PTSD. So I ended up designating a friend to be the one to share updates as we went through these things. And then that also created the blog. I had an inconvenient tumor with .com, which is, it's no longer, which makes me very, very sad. But that helped not just our friends and family know what was going on, but it ended up having something like 3 or 400,000 readers around the world of people who wanted to know what was going on with Brian as a result of, listeners from the Kroll show, and just it just became this wild world. But if we had to have those conversations in person, oh my God, there's not a chance. So find a way to designate someone as a point person for info. So that's one thing. Then a harder one is set very clear boundaries. Um, you're going to need to know what you need versus what you don't need. And you're going to have to be very clear on that. Very clear on that. There are going to be people who try to push their way in, try to tell you you're doing it the wrong way, try to, again, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not, but like try to take over. And this can often be family members who think, who freak out, like, do it this way, do it this way, no matter how old you are. Parents are going to feel very strongly, as we all would if this was our child or whatever is going on and whoever your family member might be that's being affected. But create very clear boundaries, because at the end of the day, your only job is to take care of yourself and your loved one, and that's it. You don't owe anyone else anything right now. Set your boundaries, keep them set, keep them firm, communicate what you need clearly, and have that designated point person. It's really like 3 tips in one, but I think that's really important. All right, number 7. A lot of this is like heavy, but this is really an incredibly important one. It's all around finding moments of joy and normalcy wherever you can, whenever you can. Like this new situation, whether it's cancer or if it's something else, is going to take up a lot of real estate in your life. And it doesn't have to take over everything. That's the thing. Like, don't let it swallow you up and spit you out. Look for moments of joy. Some people call these glimmers. Like if you look around, there's always something wonderful out there. Like I'm looking out my window right now and I see rose bushes and I see a beautiful breeze in the trees and I see little bees and butterflies flying around and I see a beautiful sunny sky. And, I have a little lazy dog sleeping right next to me. Could I be focusing on the fact that Brian had speech therapy and physical therapy and he's, struggling with XYZ every single day? Yeah, I could, but I don't, because that just takes you down a horrible negative wormhole. So find these little moments of joy in your own life, but then also with your family or the person who is going through the situation. Like look for those moments of joy, find them wherever you can find them. Like watch a funny movie that you love. You take a little walk in nature if they're up for it. Have a little dance party, like a little silly dance party, whatever it might be. But like these little moments of levity are going to be your lifeline. And they're also going to remind you that you're still the same people that you were before this happened, even though every single thing looks different. So find those little moments of things that you absolutely love, 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 and lean into them, because again, it's going to be a lifeline. Okay, number 8. Know that you're going to make mistakes, and like that's fine. It's more than fine. Think about just like everyone's afraid to make a mistake in their job. Everyone's afraid to make a mistake just in general. Like, oh, we're all perfect. Fuck that shit. Nobody's perfect. Everybody fucks up all the time. And when it comes to this, like something very, you might be thinking, oh my God, but Christy, if I make a mistake, it could be life or death. You're not the one giving them radiation. You're not the one giving them chemotherapy. Like you're going to make mistakes and you're going to question decisions that you made later on. The best thing that you can do is to get as much information that you can to make an informed decision that works for you and your loved one. I'm going to say it again. The best thing you can do is gather enough information, all the information you can. And I'm not talking about like going down Reddit wormholes and getting like crazy with chat boards. Like, no, not that. Like educated information, credible sources, so you can make the best decision for you and your loved one. That's it. Like give yourself grace, because you are in an impossible situation and you just have to do the best that you can. No one expects you to get it right all the time. And so you shouldn't expect yourself to do that either at all. Okay, 2 more. Number 9, this is possibly the most important thing. And I think a lot of people get nervous about this because they don't know where to start. And that was exactly us in the beginning too. But find the best medical team that has your best interest at heart. Like, that does not see you as a number, that does not see you as a statistic, that does not rush you out of the appointments that you have waited so long to get, that does not brush you off when you ask questions or treat you like an idiot for asking questions, that doesn't, oh, I don't know, I'll use a personal example, give you 6 months to live and doesn't call you for 2 or 3 weeks to be like, oh, what do you want to do for treatment? Are you out of your effing mind right now? You just said this person has 6 to 12 months to live, and you just almost just wasted 10 to 15% of that. Really? You think we're going to go with you? I don't think so. So I remember when we joined Dr. Rudnick's team at Cedar Sinai, who's been Brian's neuro-oncologist for these whole 15 years, the first thing I said to him was, because we had transferred from Doctor Doom, which is, if you've read Brian's book called Shrinkage, there's a whole chapter dedicated to Doctor Doom, he who shall not be named, at a different medical institution. But one of the first things I said to Dr. Rudnick as Brian's patient advocate was, do not give us a reason to be afraid of you. Like, please don't. Like, we need a team here. We need a team. We need you on our side. We need to work together, all of it. And he, from day one, has been like that. So find your best medical team. And there's going to be a lot of specialists. Like, again, for this, it's just, I mentioned some before, like radiologists, oncologists, there's surgeons, there's infusion center staff, there's nurses, there's MRI staff, there's just every therapists, all of it. And it's so important that you trust them implicitly, and that you know that if something doesn't feel right, or if you don't feel heard, like, they're going to be on it in 2 seconds. Also, insurance. The insurance companies these days reject every single goddamn thing that comes through. So a lot of these nurses and doctor teams and their administrative staff spend so much time just trying to appeal these medical insurance decisions just to get them covered for you. So find a team that excels in insurance coverage and knows the ins and outs of how to get things covered. And they're not just like, oh, well, sorry, it's not going to happen, because you'll be bankrupt in half a second. And I'm not saying that to scare you, but like, this stuff is not cheap, and you need experts on that end to help teach you and advocate for you against the insurance companies, because that's going to happen, and I can guarantee it. So, end of the day, your medical team should really feel like your partners in this fight, and they need to have your back in every single step of the way. All right, the last thing is, I mentioned this before, but I really want to belabor the point. If you don't understand something in a meeting with a doctor or another specialist or someone else, ask them to explain it again and again and again in layman's terms. Unless you have a medical degree, the chances are very high that you're not fluent in the language used to describe, I'm just going to use cancer as an example. Like, you're going to hear a lot of words, as I mentioned before, that you're not going to A, understand, and B, most likely can't pronounce, and certainly can't remember. But there are these different types of cancers. There's all these different therapeutic options, the medication names of procedures. It's, equipment. It's insane. What I don't ever want you to do, and God knows, maybe I'm just too stubborn and like, it's never been a problem for me, but don't ever let a doctor or a specialist that you're meeting with intimidate you into keeping quiet. So it doesn't matter if you're the patient or if you're the advocate, you need to understand every single thing that's being discussed so you can make those informed decisions that I mentioned earlier. That's the most important thing. So this feels like a lot, but this is your foundation for the beginning. And so many of these things are applicable and relevant as you move through, whether it's a cancer diagnosis or something else, but it can feel like baptism by fire. Like, you are going to be tested in ways you've never, ever imagined that could happen to you. And you're going to have to live the rest of your life at the exact same time. And that includes work, that includes parenting, that includes friendship, that includes just your self-care and your life in general. And every single one of those things are going to be impacted in ways that I'll talk about in other episodes by this new healthcare situation that you find yourself in. So just please know, as you go through this, you are not alone at all. There's so many people out there. Do not isolate yourself. Please reach out to me, reach out to others if you need help. But please know, there's so many people out there going through different scenarios and situations that can help. and that are not going to walk away. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to be afraid of you. There's so many of us out there going through this. You're not alone. And you are also so much stronger than you think, but you don't have to be strong all the time. I hate fucking being strong all the time. Everyone's like, you're the strongest person I know. Like, I didn't ask for this. And yes, I've always been strong. I've always been smart. I've always been a go-getter. Not in this sense. I never asked for this. Neither did Brian. But you can, just like I have and Brian has, and our families have and our friends have, you will find a way to get through this, but you cannot do it alone. So please do not isolate and do that on your own. Keep showing up, keep reaching out, and keep holding on to hope, because as Dr. Rudnick said to Brian one time, he's like, I can't prove it, but more than 50% of this battle is mindset. If you have a positive attitude, you're going to get so much further than if you go down the rabbit hole of negativity. So please give yourself a 5-minute pity party, pull up your, big girl, big boy pants, big whoever pants, and get moving, get started. And then, just remember, you can take breaks, because you're going to need, like, it's one of those things. Trauma makes you exhausted. It's like losing someone. It's like that bone chilling tired. Like, it's your bone tired. You know what I'm talking about? And you're going to have those moments, and give yourself the space to feel those moments, but then get back up, keep getting up, keep fighting, keep doing it, and do whatever you need, because there is no wrong answer as long as it works for you. I really hope this was helpful. I really hope you took notes. Again, if you want to see a lot of these written down in a much more abridged version, visit my website, christybishop.com, and all of it is there linked underneath the newsletter tab. And there's going to be a whole lot more of these with just these incredible, at least I hope they're incredible. They've been incredibly helpful to me. Pieces of advice and insight for anyone going through just these difficult times. And I'm going to share what nobody tells us about them. So I really hope you enjoy. One thing that's super important, if you have 2 minutes, given this is my 1-year anniversary, please leave me a quick review. It takes 2 seconds, and it really makes a huge difference to me and for the show, and also my business. As I grow this, I can't tell you, hearing from you guys is the best part of all of this. And I just want to say thank you so much. And for those of you who have supported the podcast and donated, there's a support tab on my website as well. Again, christybishop.com. Thank you for doing that, because you don't have to. And for the people who have reached out to me and said, you need to start charging. I know it's very difficult, because I want to give all this stuff away for free. But at the same time, this is now turning into a business. So we're going to figure out ways to do both and give out a ton of free information, because that's what people need, especially in these difficult times. But also, I'm working on courses that I will post around a lot of these things that will be available for purchase. And I can't even imagine the amount of people that they're going to help. I'm so excited. So with all that said, thank you for being so amazing and being with me on this journey as I build what nobody tells us. I cannot thank you enough. And until my next episode, I hope everyone is happy, healthy, and has the best day ever.